feel so glad and grateful for the opportunity, and my thanks to Matt for organizing everything so beautifully. Yay! And my thanks to Jenny, my thanks to all the interns, especially Natalie, my own dear intern, who helped me all week in so many ways in my workshop. My thanks to all my colleagues. It's been a real pleasure to teach with all of you and to get to know so many folks this week. And I was thinking what to read tonight, and here we are, still on the road together, right? But our journey draws to an end, and yet we are still in this liminal space together, being on the road. So I've been thinking about paths and how paths cross in sometimes surprising ways. This essay I'm about to read, really, I think, is what brought me here in some ways. Because when I first met Jennifer Bryce, it was in Iowa City, Iowa, in October of 2010. And I went to hear her read on a panel of Alaska writers. I was blown away. It was so amazing. And I just toddled right up there after the talk was over. And I said, "Hi, I'm Joni, and I'm trying to write about Alaska too. And I just don't know if I'm getting it right, or if I even really have, in a way, the permission to do it. I mean, who am I? I'm just a tourist there. I was just there for a while." And she was so generous and said, "You have to write your Alaska story and your experience there." And it really meant a tremendous lot to me. And I'm so glad to count you as a friend now. Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to read to you about a trip I took to Alaska, about a trip I took that changed my life. So here we are, on the road together. What the body knows. Starts with an epigraph from Isaiah. "Oh, Isaiah, we can never do better. Should I get a witness for the Shakespeare of the Hebrew Bible? Isaiah. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not withhold. Bring my sons from far away, and my daughters from the end of the earth." Isaiah 43:6. In the beginning, waiting outside the Fairbanks train station, I had the feeling the whole thing could fall through. When our guide Carl showed up, we shook hands, slung our gear into his van, and headed up the Hall Road before anyone could stop us. We were bush leaguers, my husband David and I, lugging grocery bags full of canned stew, Chef Boyardee, boiled and bagged rice. Pitiful. All night Carl drove as the sun shone through burned-over black spruce, the Alaska sky glowing an apocalyptic red behind charcoal trees. A blur of jolt and jounce, the silver pipeline always leaning over my shoulder, big rigs barreling toward us, skidding on gravel. Midnight and after midnight. Could he stay awake? Past 4 a.m. by the time he pulled into Coldfoot and killed the engine. We made camp beside the skinny airstrip and crashed into sleep. I tried to prepare. Trained, researched gear, plotted distances, but as the little plane surfed and dropped in the thermals, I saw that it wasn't enough. "What made you want to visit the refuge?" the pilot asked, and my throat closed. Cliffy mountains on either side and below. Snow caught in their creases and marks where hooves had struck stone. "Gotta be in my bonnet," I said, and as soon as I heard the words, I wanted to take them back. Why did I want to go? I wasn't sure. More than just curiosity, although I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Wanted to see a place with a bounty on its head, a place outside my ken, a place with no trees or roads or now, midsummer, darkness. In the cockpit, a locket swung from a knob, and a picture of the pilot's kids covered a dial. He belonged here, not me. But the truth was, I had to see the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge for myself. If we waited, I somehow knew that it would be too late. The plane touched down in a flat place littered with bones, and after we unloaded our equipment, the pilot slammed the door and took off, making for a cleft between mountains. Time to inflate the raft, rope down the gear, and go. If you fall in, point your feet downstream and protect your head from the boulders with your arms. Let the current carry you into a side channel where it will be shallow enough to stand. 6 inches or more and you'll be swept off your feet. Carl tells us this as we're separating our stuff into dry bags with hula hula and golden eagle and conga cut inked on the sides. I'm trying to hide how nervous I am. I'm a decent swimmer, but white water scares me. And after all, this is what I've signed up for, scrounged and plotted and saved for. We're 140 miles south of Bird Camp, and there's only one way to get there. No road but the river, and 2 weeks to reach the edge of the world. Perched on the raft's edge, one leg wedged beneath the taut rubber roll and the other splayed for balance, I clenched the paddle in my hands and shoved into glacial water opaque with rock flour. So cold, I could feel my bones inside the dead meat of my hands and legs. I squint in the bright sun on the water, looking straight ahead as David and Carl banter in the back of the raft, their words blurry in the steady stream of wind and water. At night, I need no flashlight. I write in a notebook with a waterproof pen, a frail stay against the onslaught of detail that threatens to swamp me. Can you draw up Leviathan with a fishhook? Not here, in this place out of time, where the sun never sets and our passing leaves no mark. Everything tends north. Following the river, we paddle from the mountains where the current is swift and deep, to the plateau where the upper marsh fork and the Canning River join to make a wide trunk, to the coastal plain where the water spreads out thin and silted, draining into an ice-clogged ocean. Along the way, we spot shorebirds and raptors, caribou and earwigs, see the riverbank strewn with the tracks of many beasts, moose scat like marbles, cast antlers beneath low, stiff bushes. We spend hours on the river, soaked and shivering, and one night when we haul out, I asked David, have you ever been so cold you think you're gonna puke? Here, he says, have some tea. A friend who'd visited the refuge years before spoke of the place reverently, but with few specifics. The landscape there is deceptive, he said, and as we paddled the river, I saw that he had spoken well. I'd sweep my eyes across the rolling tundra and would have sworn the place was deserted, until caribou or muskoxen emerged from a line of bright green willows. Things were sewn up in seams there, and while sometimes we saw the animal itself, more often we saw its mark, which we read as best we could. On our day hikes, I'd consult my field guides, noting what I'd seen and when, but soon realized that science was not enough for me to make sense of the place. I needed something more, something like magic. The river shapes us in our days. We sleep on its banks, drink it in chalky quarts, dip our cook pot into it to boil our noodles, soak our feet in the raft's self-bailing bottom. We bear right when we can and read the water ahead, trying to dodge the shallow places that send us swinging, or shelves where water pours strong over submerged benches, and snagging there means getting dumped. Water slides quick against ice banks sharp enough to slice your hand. Pay attention. The mountains don't move, and neither do you. Paddling hard for hours in the unwieldy current, and when finally you stop, you can't tell how far you've come. Sun high in the sky, but it's nigh on midnight. Time to make camp. Time to eat. Macaroni and cheese mixed with canned chicken, a chewy, salty feast. Open a can of spinach and cram it down, dark juice and all. This is midsummer, a powerful, auspicious time. The line between waking and sleeping is porous now. Dreams more real than waking, hours of paddling front to back, staring at layers of cobble-striped light, sun vinegary on thin water. The clearest sign is the absence of a sign. Clouds race across the sky, and a rain smear hovers over the mountains, but we hear no thunder. You see her too, don't you? The lone caribou staring at us from the gravel bar, then the hawk floating overhead. Look at these piles of yellow hay drying in the sun, left either by Arctic voles or ground-dwelling birds, and it seems vitally important I find out which. Sometimes I'm breathless with the sense of time tumbling past, but when paddling, we're caught in a moment that never ends. The shallow current tugs us north, the wind off the Arctic Ocean presses us south, and we're caught, vertical needles pointing straight up at the coppery sky. Old accounts written by sober men employed by the U.S. Navy to map the coastal plain we're traveling tell of mirages so sharp that the men saw their distant camps hovering above the horizon. The angle of the light and the curve of the earth made their far-off colleagues seem to walk upside down, heads to the tundra and feet treading thin air. The accounts speak of driftwood polished and old, and survey markers that turn temporary, tundra working the concrete loose by freeze and thaw, heaving the heavy plugs free. One afternoon, I could swear we're alone when a herd of thousands of caribou appears, crosses the river in front of us, and vanishes. They leave hoof prints in the dark sand, snatches of hollow hair, and a scent like beef jerky in the air. I'm the only one who can smell it. Months later, we'll watch her pale bones appear on the dark screen. Skull, vertebrae, and sacrum, what lasts longest of any of us. I'll realize then that what I saw in the refuge is as close and unknowable as my own belly. Images taken during the earliest days of gestation show a shape that resembles a tongue. Nubbled, bumpy, a crease where the spine would be. While I craved spinach and liver, her brain did it together. While I paddled and paddled against the wind, shouting with rage and strain, her body was rocketing through a whole host of changes, and I hardly knew. Praised and cursed be the thread-legged horde, singers of monotonous whine, filchers of blood, for keeping us always in the moment. They hatch before the snow melts, rise in clouds in the tundra, drive caribou onto snowfields, are ever with us. Their hum is constant as the wind on the river. We wear head nets while eating, snaking spoonfuls of grub under the mesh as fast as we can, and extricating our hands, bitter with DEET and pimpled with bites. They bite through our pants, our shoes, our neoprene socks. They bite through our head nets where the fabric brushes our temples. At night, we unzip the tent and roll in quick, then set about killing the dozens that have swarmed inside. Yet without the mosquito, the Jaegers and longspurs and buntings would starve, and the wolf and the bear. They're the wide base of the food pyramid here, billions of pounds of protein on the wing. We paddle past midnight and sleep till noon. And one bright morning brings me my grandmother, gone and buried under Ohio turf these many years, and yet now, somehow, seated across from me at a table covered with a white cloth. We're at a banquet, and the air between us hums with the low talk of other guests. Later, there will be a keynote speaker, but right now I'm telling her about some apartment my sister wants to rent, an ordinary conversation. I'm so happy we can sit here and talk like this, I tell her, and she smiles. We hug each other and I wake shaken. I could swear she's visited me. The light and water and cold shake loose everything I carried here with me. The cities of my adulthood and the small town of my girlhood, now the farm country of my childhood, vast ripples of green and gold, and stubble after plowing, dark earth. My grandmother lived all her life in that place. She worked hard, borrowed trouble, made the best of what little she had, and foresaw things both bad and good before they could rightly be known. Her husband's sudden death, yes, but also children, and other things I can never now ask her. Later, after watching a herd of muskoxen vanish into a stand of willows, I find a twist of soft underwool, kiviat, snag on a bush, and tug it into my field guide to save. It would have been better, maybe, if I'd left something in its place. Not to pay for what I took, but to acknowledge a certain reciprocity. The Daina, a native tribe who live in central Alaska, teach that when a person harvests a medicinal plant in the mountains, besides speaking correctly to it, he should also leave a small gift, such as a thread or match or bit of tobacco in place of the plant. What should I have given? A bone, a hank of my own hair, a pinch of loam from a fallow field, a thing that might, over time, become part of here? We pass clumps of dwarf fireweed, also called river beauty, whose purple florets are just starting to open. When the last blooms fade, people say, you've got 4 weeks until first snow. By this point in the trip, we are keeping it very real. We've been on the river 10 days without showering, and the coastal plain is so flat, there's not even a hillock for privacy. Between these physical demands and the conversations we have, we've become a band of 3 with our own lingo of inside jokes and games. We roll down the river singing songs from our youth, like I the Tiger, Purple Rain, and our anthem, Beat It. Michael Jackson goes to work in that song. He sings it all, lead, backup, and the offbeat. But Eddie Van Halen plays the guitar solo. 30 seconds so indelible, I bet you could lay it down right now. We did. Barreling down the river, Carl howling the guitar line, David singing the rhythm, me whapping the side of the raft. The solo starts guttural and ends in a keening scream, and by now, a generation after its creation, it's spread across the world, gone circumpolar, like some lichen species. 4 verses and a chorus. Some fights you win outright, others by avoidance. And then the knock on the door. They've come for you. It's not the song so much as the contrast it provides, the gap between Michael Jackson and this wild place. It's a way to be silly, a relief from the cold and exhaustion, and a distraction from the fear we seldom speak aloud. We're paddling the Canning, the boundary between the protected for now refuge and the disputed 1002 area. We make camp on the refuge side and gaze across the river. It's quiet now, except for the current and the gulls, but what's next? What can we do about it? Right now, here's what we can do. Bear right, dig hard to slide past that gravel bar, and suck down enough air to sing the next word. We sing other songs too, but keep coming back to this one. And as we repeat its lines, they turn almost tangible, calling up a feeling of warmth on my shoulders, hills sliding past, spray on my arms. I am not going to drown while singing Beat It. Here's how the body calms the mind. Perform a repetitive task, repeat a familiar litany. In the old days, people built bonfires on midsummer night and danced around them till dawn. The only fire we have is the hissing jet boil, but after we scarf the day's last meal, we jig around the raft to get our blood moving and howl till we're hoarse at the floating sun. Without trees, the mountains seem disproportionately high. When we go hiking, land that looks smooth and unbroken from the river turns out to be boggy, tooled with gullies and seeps. So I find myself looking down at things small enough to focus on and discover lichen in amazing profusion. While David and Carl read, I go a-hunting for powdered sunshine, rippled rock frog, and fairy puke. Here's elegant orange lichen splattered across a stone, but no frog pelt or rock tripe, nor pixie cups, a club lichen that looks like miniature goblets. Their species name, Pixidata, comes from the Latin pixis, a box, perhaps because the tiny cups look like miniature containers, muse the writers of the wonderful Plants of the Western Boreal Forest in Aspen Parkland. Terrific book, I recommend it to you all. A pix is a box in a government mint in which sample coins are kept to be tested for purity or weight. Are the tiny scales in the cups of this lichen fairy coins? I recognize rim lichen from back home in South Carolina. Flat and bluish white, it's called manna by some. According to my book, local people believe that it fell from heaven, and in times of famine they followed the example of their livestock and used it as food. Lichen gnaws stone, making earth from raw quartz and flint. It grows slowly, sometimes as little as 0.02 millimeters per year. A hand-sized patch can be 1,000 years old. And scientists studying lichenometry can uncover details about glaciation and what the planet's climate used to be like. Lichen reveals the air of the past, too, taking heavy metals into itself and giving knowledge to those who know how to ask. Fabulous secrets, kept since the world was young, and I step over them, leaving them behind as I bounce across the tussocked plain, eating of bitter dock and looking for ragged paper doll and granulated shadow. Something here sings to the body's stony bones and wrinkled veins, pulls at the blood's piled and tide. The iron-rich stones wipe clean the details of the life I somehow used to know, with its rooms and its light bulbs. Why had I stayed indoors so much? Why had I believed that it mattered what people thought of me? Taste how sweet is this chalky water straight from the river. Feel how good is the sleep in the blessed bag. Do you see it too? The plateau sliced into red books of shale, tangled branches of a rough-legged hawk's nest, fox tracks. Sometimes my own name sounds strange to me. How could I need it here? Eventually, we'll register for gear at the baby superstore, staring gobsmacked at the wall of wipes and rubber nipples and nail clippers kitted out with tiny flashlights. If only we were outfitting a trip to the Arctic, I'll think. At least then we'd know what to pack. Memories of the truck stop at Coldfoot will come flooding back to me. A framed collage of disaster snapshots hung on the wall next to the payphone. Big rigs jackknifed in a ditch. Tow trucks loading a mangled SUV. Someone had pasted dialogue bubbles to the glass. Beside a crumpled Tahoe. Will my insurance cover this? A man chaining a big rig's undercarriage for a tow. Relax, I'm a doctor. Gallows humor, exactly what you need when you're halfway to dead horse. In for a penny, in for a pound. If the inclines don't get you, the frost heaves will. But what can you do? You can't stay here. Our last day. From afar they look like animals, but up close I see their oil barrels, dozens of them, black and rusty, left from exploratory drilling 20 years ago. It's jarring. For 2 weeks, the only human-made things we've seen have been what we carry with us. Across the plain in the distance, beads of light burn above Prudhoe Bay. Too easy to imagine drilling platforms here, gashes ripped by wide tires and lined with frozen smog. I turn away from that and out to sea, the yellow grassland running up to the water's edge and falling away. Piles of dry wood mark the tide line in silvery drifts. Here, where land begins, bare tracks mark the soft beach, and I step aside with an unconscious deference. These are barren ground grizzlies, Carl tells us. Smaller and less numerous than their Kodiak cousins, but hungrier. There are no streams jumping with salmon here, and they have to make do as best they can. The beach is littered with skull pans and vertebrae of long-dead caribou, stained dark by the sand. The Arctic Ocean, what we've been waiting for all along. And as for that deep-seated fear of being swept downstream, cast it off, along with your grimy clothes, and run naked into water so cold it shorts out thought. Ha! Dog paddle out to the nearest chunk of ice, slap it, bob in the water, and swim back to shore, sand giving underfoot. Stagger out onto dry land or rub down with a little towel. Stand bareskin on the damp sand, baying with joy. What a rush, I holler, heart booming in my chest. What a rush. Warm rays of sun on your back. An Arctic fox's bushy whitetail. Telemetry station, steel pipe listing to one side. Under feathers with a snowy owl. And atop the rise, a graveyard, with markers cut from green wood. It had been edged with a low fence once, but now the palings lie on the ground, worked loose by animals or frost heaves. But the wooden markers are dry and sound, and the characters carved on them read plainly. Nason, died February 10, 1933. Angupkana, died March 23, 1936. Jim O. Karuk, born May 19, 1933, died September 4, 1934. An old whaling camp, Carl says, and I try to think what it might have been like for the people who lived here, keeping snug in sod-built homes, eating strips of blubber from bowheads they caught, bearing babies and trying to raise them right. We stand in the wind, looking out over the ocean, stretching north clear to the pole. Maybe the closer you get to the top of the world, the greater your risk of madness. Move beyond the life you once knew and into a new place that breaks with the past. Into this new body, arms lean and trembling, palms black from the paddle shaft, feet fluent in a safe pad hid between stone and current. Into this place where the very stones grow bread, speak of ancient warm seas, crack open where narrow sprouts. Cups smaller than a baby's nail hold precious samples waiting to be tried. I assay the value of the thing by bathing it again and again in glacial melt, exposing it to sunlight for weeks at a stretch. And in the pink sky at 3 a.m., the sun floats, a pale bubble. We lie on the grass at bird camp. We'll leave in the morning. Early July, and spring is just beginning to green the grass stems, though the woolly lousewort's already blooming, and all of it passing away. Rivers carrying mountains out to sea, lichen eating stone, the spinning earth hauling the long darkness closer, 1 minute at a time. Morning. Coastal fog could have given us another day, but the air was clear, and the pilot skidded to a landing right on time. We loaded our gear and climbed inside, and the beaver lifted. banking over shallow lagoons, lousy lagoons, rising over gleaming braids of the Canyon Delta, the double lines that make caribou trails, Grizzly's brown humps. I grieved to go. And all that afternoon's long drive back to Fairbanks, I felt sensitive as a peeled egg, as we skidded past hillsides of purple fireweed, gorged on gigantic boo-boo burgers dripping with teriyaki sauce, drove through rooster tails of road dust. On the radio, Bob Marley sang Redemption Song, and I worked hard not to cry. Won't you help to sing? Our last hours together, our band of merry singers about to split. It's all I ever had. And somewhere along that busted road, another heart started beating beneath my own ribs. The fluorescent lights in the all-night grocery store hurt my eyes as I hunted a pregnancy test to confirm what I already knew. We said goodbye to Carl and watched his van disappear into traffic. Something had ended. And something begun. Back in South Carolina, her heartbeat pounded like wave after wave of swirling wind. Like that Arctic wind coming from a far distance and hauling with it the chill of great change. I believe that landscape to be far behind us, but during those lengthening nights I dreamed it close, seeing again the hills and divots I'd quietly named First Raft Put In, Prince's Purple Meadow, Hypothermia Beach, Mew Gull Bombing Range, Sunny Draw piled with hay, campsite where I told David my suspicions, last place which I mourned to leave. The Gwich'in call that coastal plateau sacred place where life begins. Those muskoxen we watched in the bright midnight must now, early February, stand in clusters in the howling dark, as wind scours the snow from low places on the tundra, and they feed on the grasses exposed there. Soft under wool streaming in the gale. So are you, my child, eyes opening and closing in the black, aglow now and then toward which you turn your face. I do not know when to look for you, but what I imagine is a time belonging to no hour. In the Golden Bough, Fraser tells of people from Bombay to Transylvania who believed that unlocking doors and opening windows would help a woman in labor. Back then, men would unbraid their hair, uncork bottles, unlid pots. David and I prepare as best we can. If it would help to unsnarl the extension cords, straighten the garden hose, unclasp the necklaces and lay them flat, we would do it. We crave something useful to do, a song whose every word we know by heart. It will begin after midnight, the old stories say. As the time draws near, I dread nightfall, and every sleep is surrender. I long for the constant sunlight we have in the refuge, but it's winter now, and darkness falls early. Here in our bed, David sleeps beside me. He'll do what he can, I know, but mostly I'm in this alone. Or so I think. When the pain begins, I know what to do. Set it aside to get more sleep. Rest I will need to do the work this day will require. At the time appointed, it shakes me awake and racks me with cold, and I say, there you are, my enemy, my fear. Let me wrestle you as with a lover. One at a time. This I can do. As the wrenching starts low in the belly, as it catches and strengthens and pulls me into itself, tight. More. As I climb the steep side of a wave and higher, breathing through my throat. Pain, a burning cold that builds on itself and burns out from the marrow, caught upon the tines of it, whirled into a dense core. No words for this, but a moan and huff. A gleaming, blinding center glaring as sun on ice, and from the peak of it to slide down the far side. It wanes and I wax, aware of myself again, laughing at how it took me. And here comes another, crawling up my belly to my heart. They come, a few breaths apart, then two, then one. My body ringing like a twist of cloth. We gather our gear, towels, Vaseline, the Joshua tree, a snapshot of the two-lane highway, and go. David drives the car down the road. It was not this tidy, but to leave it unwritten is worse. It diffuses into the air, leaving flashes of images behind. Squinting in the sun, a harsh bird call, swirl of rock flour in the cook pot. In the moments between, I become aware of the seatbelt snug under my belly, fluorescent lights and empty offices, bare sidewalk, 5 a.m. on a Monday. And then, yellow grass. A mosquito cloud rising from the tundra to find a haunch and settle. I have done this, have fattened with life and split, my labor inseparable from the place where I first divined its coming. This is the difference between spirit and flesh, the idea of a place and its reality. Beyond the mind lies the visceral, what the body knows. I have taken pleasure in the steaming mug of tea, sun on my back, springy earth pressing my feet. Look, a miniature forest of tiny golf clubs, short as a knuckle. And this, a gnawed antler half buried, tooth marks like little ditches in the bone. This lasts a long time, until the others take what they need, and this calcium turns into a vole nestling, from that into an owl's eggshell, and from that into a thieving fox's belly, where kits overwinter in the stretching dark. Slow. I walk down the hall. I lie down and relax a muscle at a time, neck to shoulders to back to belly, and the pain comes in wave after wave that I slip up and onto and over and down, up and onto and over and down. And when I glance over to gauge my progress, I see the same bedside, the same cut bank as before. When the final press comes, I'm ready. What we come 20,000 miles to get is worth saving, Starbuck says to Ahab, the chase hard on them. Starbuck, always too careful. Doesn't he know? When the time comes, you have to give it all, hold nothing back. Ahab knows this, and so do I. Breathless with the relief of finding, at last, the long-sought one, and after all the rolling of line and sharpening of points, anticipation and dream, nausea and swelling, ready now to stare and throw. I strive with my work as with an opponent outside my body and wrestle myself to the mat. Can't sit without help, but I'm strong, feral, working through a body that doesn't feel like mine, a curl of muscle and sinew cut loose from a narrating mind. I lose speech during this repeated action. Spells fill the space. What a strange glow marks this scene between life and death. One hand takes the other and grips. Pray for those who labor, the old ritual says, for danger holds them, and they must give themselves up to it, moving outside of thought into a place that splits them clear open. I drag myself forward a stroke at a time, by turns crabbed and lean with the strain, making for a place meant not to dwell, but to witness things beyond time's usual span. Eyes squeezed shut, I reach up and slip the slick of a broken bird, bobbing in an icy humor that blanks out thought and burns all over. With numb toes, I push off the bottom and make for land, blind stumbling and staggering, choking with cold, gasping up and out and onto the beach, falling onto something that knocks the wind out of me, a solid thing that is not an idea but a fact on its way to a writing, a fact that sings I be in a rising stream of notes that is a cry. And then I laugh and laugh. David will tell me later, but I've forgotten that. I remember only her here, warm and slick, holy dirt smearing her crown, clinging to a scalp that pulses with life. There is a logic that the body knows. The head gets in the way most of the time, but not the red night we danced at bird camp, and not now. Soon the midwife will wash and wrap her, but for now we hold tight to each other, curded with the river I drank to swell our first shared blood. She was with me all along. Child from far away, my daughter from the end of the earth. Thank you.